Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Rise and Shine, and we're coming to you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. Of course, we bring you topical conversations of serious issues happening in Nigeria. This morning, we've seen several things happening from Adamawa State, the just concluded cycle of supplementary election, and several other conversations on the front pages of our national dailies. We have a focus this morning: the process, the outcome, and the results of the just concluded election. We have a great personality on set to have this conversation with us this morning, and in the person of Sir Leonard Onyongo, who is a public affairs analyst, legal practitioner, member of Chatham House, London, secretary, Cross River State Elders Forum, Commissioner, Cross River State Law Reform Commission. It's such a great delight to have you in set this morning. Good morning, sir.
Thank you so much, Janice and Oyai. Good morning, viewers.
Yeah.
It's very beautiful to be here. I trust I can say thank you for the services you render to humanity, and I can always pray that Spectrum will go higher and higher. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. Absolutely.
Yeah, and you asked about his trip down here.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to talk to my friends, the governor of Akwa Ibom State.
Mm-hmm.
Lovely. I mean, this alone should attract all the development down here, but it's quite commendable. I'm sure in no distant time the road will be done. We are going to add some voice to that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's great when we have great men who
Yeah.
walk into a place and decide to add their voice to the things we are going through.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. But so much. We are happy that you're here. We are happy to have you on our set live. I know that you've spoken to us before, but over the phone, joining your voices to some of the major issues happening in the country. And today we are looking at the outcome of the 2023 elections. Of course, we saw off-season elections or primaries being held across, some of the states that will be having off-season elections on the 11th of November. We've also had supplementary elections across polling units that were also declared inconclusive, and we've seen the violence that has also, been associated with some of the supplementary elections, and of course the drama in Adamawa State. But so far, so good. What would be your perception about the 2023 elections? Let's even start all the way from February 25 presidential elections to the March 18 gubernatorial and state houses of assembly elections, and even to the one that we just had on Saturday. What would be your perception towards the 2023 general elections?
Well, additionally to my activities, I'm also a resource person to the African Union. For the past 1 week, I've been on the West African tour, from Banjul to Lagos to Port Harcourt, and I'm here too. And basically, elections in Africa generally, of course, Nigeria, Nigeria is, what I would like to know, Nigeria is a leader. It's a leader in Africa. And so a lot of the world look up to Nigeria. Everyone will sit as a member of the Chatham House, discuss Africa. You cannot discuss Africa without Nigeria. So basically, the world look up to Nigeria for leadership. But I was, while I was sitting before this studio, I was watching the news, the headlines you were reading, and the interaction from all over the world to your studio. It's quite unfortunate the way especially the 2023 elections, general election, has almost come and gone now. There was high expectation. Every election cycle was supposed to have improvement from the previous experiences. And of course, this one, particularly in 2023, was supposed to be a technologically driven election based on the introduction of BVAS and the electronic transmission that was captured by the new Electoral Act 2022. I'll try not to speak law so much so that the viewers can go. But the Electoral Act, the Constitution, these are the principal legislation governing elections in Nigeria, and has clearly stated how these elections are to be conducted. The difference between us and other clime basically is that in other clime, people commit infractions, people commit their aberrations, but they are punished for them. Here in Nigeria and some other African countries, let me be very fair, people do all sorts of things without deterrence. And I keep saying in different forums that loss without the sanction aspect of it is just but mere musical instrument. You know, we are a country. We are supposed to be a country of laws, governed by laws, and of course the Nigerian Constitution, which is the highest law of the land that governs our activities. But we have seen this. We have enough laws in the country already, but we do not have the political will to implement the laws, and that's why people can do all sorts of things. I mean, the drama that is happening in Adamawa State. I've had a lot of calls from outside the country, and you know, I was having those kind of Zoom interview, like, what is happening? You know, these things keep happening that way. You know, I can come here and say, look, I'm the owner of Spectrum TV, and nothing happens. You know, because there's no deterrence, there's no punishment for those claims and those aberrations. You understand? So when you don't have those things, people just do all sorts of things and go scot-free. And sincerely, I will tell you, even as a legal practitioner of so many years standing, by God's grace, I'm a senior legal practitioner. When people do all sorts of things and you hear this adage, go to court, it's quite embarrassing to some of us. Because the legal system in Nigeria is supposed to be very punitive enough. It's supposed to be like a deterrent so that people are scared of even going to court. Well, how come that we do all sorts of things and then we tell us to go to court? I won't be surprised if at the end of the day that declaration stands and then you are pushed to the tribunal to either kick against or otherwise.
Which decision are you talking about?
The Adamawa decision.
Okay.
It's very possible. They are going to review it, but it's possible to say, okay, an announcement has been made. Of course, you know that the returning officer is not the resident electoral commissioner. There's a returning officer for that election. Based on the INEC rules and other extant laws, there's supposed to be a returning officer. But the question will be that some people argue that, okay, if the returning officer assuming he doesn't want to do his duty, can they wreck? These are questions that people now bring in, and that's okay. Let us go to court. Let the court take decisions.
So we are questioning why the returning officer for the state was even absent in the moment that the announcement was made.
You know, I like to balance things. The other side of the story is that, assuming the returning officer, generally speaking, is not, he doesn't want to perform his duties, or is prevented from performing his duties. So what happens?
But was collation done?
It was not. It was not done. So there was that issue. I'm not trying to put the other side of the divide because there have been argument that way too. That it was not around. And
people will try to explain it away.
Exactly. But of course, the Electoral Act, the 2022 Electoral Act, gives room for INEC to review these decisions. And I think for once, we want to see the outcome of this review. As we speak, I think INEC is on that matter to come out with official statement. But the question is this: have there been enough deterrence, enough punishment for people that offend the land? Offenders. That's why you see all sorts of cases, all sorts of crime in the country with extreme impunity. Crime happen all over the world.
So since you've taken us to the side of, you know, questioning, when we hear, it's something we really heard during the collation of the presidential election. If you're not satisfied with the process, go to court. That was something that, you know, INEC chairman himself, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, continued to use those lines. There's a big question when we're talking about the process of how the election was done. Is the judiciary a system we can trust in Nigeria to even give us what we can call answers that most Nigerians are looking for? Because to a very large extent, it feels like Nigerians are disgruntled over the process of the just concluded election. And the last hope of the common man is the court as it stands now. Can we trust the judicial system of our country?
We will still have to trust the judicial system in the country. If you look at the hierarchy of court, for the governorship elections, it starts with the election tribunal, goes to Court of Appeal, and then the Supreme Court. Presidential starts with the Court of Appeal, and then ends at the Supreme Court. We still have to give the judiciary, we still have to have faith in the judiciary. Of course, I'm also aware that there have been some decisions of the Supreme Court that the general public don't really understand why these decisions went the way it went. You know, but, you know, let us get something right. The judiciary or the court, you know, it's not there to manufacture cases. It's us, human beings. We are the ones that take the cases to court, to the judiciary. And whether we like it or not, decisions in court are taken one way or the other. You know, it's either you go to court, you win or you lose, depending on the presentation and the fact before the court. But basically, before we go to court, let us try to get the rules. Let us follow the rules. You know, if we follow the rules, we'll be happy. In fact, we have almost 5,000 cases so far in this election petition tribunal. You know, some of us thought that with the electronic transmission of result and all those technology, we should have less number of cases in the present election. But that isn't the case. It's almost opposite of it because there have been serious violations. But let me quickly say something. one of the major problems we have in Africa is political instability, mostly caused by legitimacy of elections across the West African sub-region and even in Africa generally, and Nigeria is not an exception. You know, where the legitimacy of an election is questioned and it's in serious doubt, even when you go to court and the decision goes one way or the other, you know, that legitimacy has been questioned, the people have less faith. You know, the basic difference between democracy and any other form of government is the legitimacy of the election. Otherwise, we have other forms of government. Now, if the legitimacy of this election has been questioned, and of course, I know the expectation of a lot of Nigerians that the Supreme Court should do justice to it. Whatever you mean by justice, it depends on the side of the divide you are.
Exactly.
You know, so we expect that let us come out with a transparent decision that everybody will like, okay, this is why the decision went one way or the other. The reason for the decision is called ratio dissidendis. Sorry, let me not talk too much law now. But then you see that we need to be very careful as a country. Most of this conflict we have is as a result of the inability of us to obey rules. Because if you obey rules and the laws, you know, because if the law said don't slap somebody in the morning, and you wake up in the morning and slap somebody, and there's a punishment session for it, and you are not punished, you have the audacity and the temerity to keep slapping everybody in the morning. The difference between law and morality is that there's sanctions in law. If I can come to this studio, if I want to be rude, I will not greet you, and there's nothing you can do about it. But if I come to this studio and harass you, there's punishment for that. So we need to, these are the benchmark, and that's why I'm insisting on that. I'm repeating for the sake of that emphasis, that we should have punishment, we should have the political will to punish offenders in this country.
Now, when we keep talking about political will, we begin to ask questions. Why don't we even have the political will to do what we're supposed to do?
Exactly. You know, in the Nigerian Constitution, there's provision for an Attorney General and Minister of Justice at the federal level. There's also provision for Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in the states. If I am appointed an Attorney General and Minister of Justice in the country now, the appointer is the president. You know, of course, it's going to send it to the Senate for confirmation of ministers. Now, if the body language of my appointer is pointed to the other way around, you know, it's basically that, okay, I'm going to look and follow my appointment because I am both the chief law officer at the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, for instance. Now, there have been this argument that let us separate that office. Let the Minister of Justice or Commissioner for Justice be purely political, while the Attorney General is the chief law officer and, is immune from political interference. You understand? So those are things that we'll look at it and say, okay, going forward, these are things we have to tinker with the Constitution. You know, so that the institutions have to work.
So invariably, you're saying that whatever is happening with our willpower to prosecute some of these offenders still lies on the buck of the president.
The president or the governor of the state, if he directs otherwise. Because if I'm the Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, or Attorney General or Minister of Justice, for instance, and Mr. President is not interested in any particular case, there's nothing I can do. That is the fact. We must face the fact. We must tell ourselves the truth.
True.
There's nothing to sugarcoat anything any longer. You know, so I believe that the office of the Attorney General should be different from the office of the Minister of Justice or Commissioner for Justice. So that if there's an aberration, you know where it goes. Of course, it happens in the US. That's why the former president of the former president of US, Donald Trump, can be tried. You know, so but we don't have great institutions in this country. I mean, independent institutions. What we have is that we have the whims and caprices of individuals. You know, it is rated, of course, in my global discussion, Nigerian president is one of the most powerful presidents in the world. Not because he has so much power, but because the laws allows that. You know, of course, if you come to the state level, as a governor, you virtually control the judiciary, the executive. I mean, because of the financial autonomy you control, financial power. Because look, if you pay the bill, you dictate the tune. You know, so we must have to make the institutions to work, and the institutions have to be independent. That's where we are going to get this country going.
Okay, so something else that is a matter of concern, because we are looking holistically into the elections, was a big cry that INEC flouted a lot of the guidelines that were, put on paper for them to follow for the elections. For instance, everybody celebrated the introduction of the BVAS machine, the technology that was meant to be all the difference we
And
needed.
even the electoral act.
Yes,
Let me
even
just add
the
that.
electoral
Yes.
act here. Several guidelines. You will not, quote and unquote, announce a result that has not first been uploaded to the, BVAS machine.
IREV.
Set IREV, certain systems that were in broad daylight flouted. Dino Melai, cried out during the collation in Abuja and said, this is not the system that we had all agreed we were going to work upon.
Voting in Ekiti State.
And then Professor Mahmoud Yakubu said, we are going to continue with the process of collation, after which, if you have a problem with that, go to court. So let's talk about the fact that guidelines on paper, electoral acts, etc., INEC did not follow through. Where does that leave us as a country with the just concluded cycle of election?
We had a lot of expectations. I was in a function by one of the national commissioners. He attended, Festus Okoye, who is also a senior lawyer, like myself, and personally told me that this time around, apart from the publication, there was an official press statement, but I had one-on-one engagement with him too, and he said, I asked him this question, that where there's disparity between the electronically transmitted result and the manual collation, which one supersedes? And he clearly told me that it's the electronically transmitted result. Now, we have results from the polling units, different polling units. Of course, that is the basis. Now, the result ought to have been transmitted electronically to the IREF, the central server, where you are going to, if you key in from their explanation, you are going to see all the results from the polling units. For instance, my polling unit is 007 in Alifokpa Yache, Yala local government. Now, if you want to know my result, my polling unit, just to key in, and then you see the result displayed. But what we had, that wasn't the case. We had the polling unit results most time different from if it was even transmitted at all.
Yes.
Completely different. But this case I have to be very careful too, because these matters are in court. We want to see that the court, at the end of it, let us see how the court interprets transmission of electronic result. So I will be very, very careful about that. But the guidelines were very clear that where the disparity between the electronically transmitted result and the manual collation, the manual result, that the electronic one supersedes.
But how does the electronic one supersede, what was written down at the center? Because we are talking about, now let's just do layman conversation, for instance. The results have been collated at the polling unit. Between the journey from the polling unit to the INEC headquarters in that local,
are you talking about the manual journey or the electronic journey?
Some people, most of the centers said, we don't have data here, we don't have connection here, we need to go to the INEC headquarters in the local government to be able to transmit. What is the guarantee that the numbers that were imputed into the machine that is that is set to supersede the written one was not doctored?
Manipulated.
It's very sad, because the electoral act provides for all these cases you are saying. But I do not want to go too deep, because these matters are in court. Let me see how the court will come out with this decision.
So our last hope indeed is the court.
Of course, it is the court that will actually, of course, it has to be the Supreme Court, because all the tribunal will end at the Supreme Court, whether governorship or the presidential election, apart from maybe the National Assembly and the State House of Assembly that ends at the Court of Appeal. Now, what we have is that at the polling unit result, if the polling result, for instance, let's say there's a polling unit in this station now, and the vote there is 20. Now, we were made to understand by the INEC rules and guidelines that result, that unit 20 in this station, is going to be electronically transmitted to this IREC server, But if you go to the server, most time the result is not even there whatsoever. That's why I say this matter is in court. Let us see the failure of that transmission. Will it affect substantially the outcome of the result? That is the question for the court to decide. But when you have the result 20, and then you now see the server is giving you maybe 30 or whatever figure the people are alleging, then the question is that which of the result are we going to take? Is it the result at the polling that is 20, or the result that is at the server that is 45, depending on the divide? So that's why I say these cases are very technical. The court will come out one way or the other. But I want to call on the Nigerian judiciary, which I'm proudly a practitioner, to meet the expectation of Nigerians. It's very key and fundamental, because if we lose the legitimacy and the fear of Nigerians is that it's possible that everybody can be compromised. But I can tell you that there are a lot of men in the judiciary that can stand out, and I believe that the judiciary has come of age in Nigeria. Of course, while I was in Gambia, Nigerian judges are the ones heading most of these West African countries. I can tell you for free. So we expect that men of honor still exist in the judiciary, and they will come out with justice of the case. I mean, justice is supposed to be manifest. Let us see it happen. Let us see why decisions are taken the way it is taken. And of course, justice is not just for the victim; it's just also for the society, and even also for the person that is accused. So it's a tripartite way. Let us. I beg Nigerians to be patient. Let us see the outcome of these elections in the court. But then I will go a step further to say that going forward, I want to see a situation where we will amend our legislation so that elections matter will be concluded completely before somebody is sworn into office. Because
I was also thinking that the Electoral Act as amended, make provisions for that, because they say,
before May 29th,
there's a window. Mm-hmm. There's a window that all electoral issues must be concluded before even the swearing in.
No, there's nothing like that. Normally, when you start, it's 180 days. If you look at 180 days from now to May 29, you know that's far more than that. Yes. But they have what you call the pre-election and the post-election. The pre-elections are those ones deal with primaries and all that. That one substantially has been concluded across the country because primaries had like 6 months back. Yeah. I was fortunate to do a matter from the High Court to the Court of Appeal and up to the Supreme Court for pre-election matter. That was actually concluded before the election. But the election itself, it can't be concluded before May 29th because, of course, people have to respond to accusations and allegations and all that. So what I'm saying in essence is that let us bring a legislation that make it compulsory that these matters should be settled before swearing of any other person that declared a candidate or a winner of an election.
Okay, now let's talk about something. I know that our caller Sonny from Benin actually made mention of something very, very important when he talked about systemic failure. Now, whatever we are saying and doing today is as a result of these systemic failures that have happened. So little things that we've been doing over time, and just like you said, no punitive measures given to these things have brought us to where we are today. How do we now begin to, I would say, unmask some of the things that we have done, which is those little mistakes that we have done and overlooked? How do we begin to unmask them now and, begin to have a better Nigeria and even a better electoral process in the country? Before we even talk about the lessons we have learned so far, because I think that Nigerians forget a lot. So if we're saying that we have learned lessons from this particular elections, 4 years down the line, we'll be going to the polls again to have another elections. The same mistakes we have done this 2023 elections will be repeated in 2027.
And just to embellish that just a little bit, we're having a conversation this morning how that elections had happened on the 18th of March for certain gubernatorial states and were declared inconclusive in the likes of Adamawa and Kebbi, and so we had supplementary elections because of violence and other related issues. Those elections were declared inconclusive. We spent money, went around to conduct the elections again, and yet again announced null and void. Where are we missing the lessons, in between all of this, just to embellish?
We are not punishing people that are offending the state. That's the straight answer. But come to how we can do it differently.
Yeah.
A manager is as good as a management team. In this country, we always talk about politics. We'll not talk about governance. In other clime, maybe we'll talk about let's call out UK because these are our colonial masters in the days. Of course, some people will keep arguing that they still control the Commonwealth, so we are still technically under them. That's why almost everybody that contested election went to the Chatham House to be interviewed. So somehow they have a lot of influence over us. Then of course in the US. Now, in this climb, people don't really care whether you come from the Labour Party or the Democrat or the Republican. What they know that there's a benchmark when you get to office. This is what you are expected to do. But in this country, it's always politics. It's very difficult to know where governance should begin after politics. So we do not have that kind of system. We always have that, okay, Mr. A is elected or comes into power, he does whatever he wants to do and off it goes. And then you bring another person, it takes us back to square one. So the management team of any government is very key. I do not believe that a governor can do everything. You know, you need someone who is appointed, for instance, the commissioner for works in Akwa Ibom State to say, okay, look, we need to get the spectrum road done. You need to push for that, do a memo, and justify it. Otherwise, if you just wait for the governor, for instance, you may not even know what is happening. Who brings this information to his knowledge matters a lot. And that's why I said, going forward, I want to call on great Nigerians, including yourself, to be very interested in politics. Politics is not that you must get elected. You must have to show interest. After elections, most Nigerians go back to their businesses. How do we follow up with those elected officials? What are they doing? What is their accountable nature? How are they being accountable to the law that allow them to be sworn in the first place? So we should be, once we're interested, and that's where the institutions have to work. Once the institutions work, we'll get the country going.
Now, even talking about accountability, do we have a situation where we have mechanisms that, you know, provides for citizens to begin to account, you know, hold their leaders accountable?
A public commission. Let me just see. We have
we follow those
public
things?
complaints commission.
There's belts, but
we have everything there. I'm telling
that
you.
is not working.
We even have something that's similar to Chatham House in the country. There's Institute of Foreign Affairs. You know, of course, we're in the country that out there, I think some of us are globally recognized. But when you come home here, they'll look at you and like, if you want to get this thing, let's do the right thing. People look at you. No, it's not done that way in this country. And I say, when do we get this sorted out? Where all of us are now being pushed out. And I keep saying that this jackpot syndrome is because we don't have that enabling environment. If this enabling environment is created by government, governance to me is as simple as I am dressed. It's not something complex. You are basically to provide the enabling environment for people to strive. And what's the essence of governance? Is to provide security and provide and you are interested about the welfare, the platform for the welfare of the people. It's nothing so complex about it. But I can tell you that it's more individualistic in Nigeria. There's no collectivism, if I must use that word, where a very good brains will come together. But here, when you are elected a governor or a president, or whether the head of the judiciary or head of the legislature, you think you know it all. You don't expect anybody to criticize you. You want to be praised 24 hours. That's what we have. We're supposed to have critical engagement. We're supposed to have a town hall approach. No, I know. See, policies of government in Nigeria should be drawn from the people. For instance, if you come to my community, what my community needs is road. If I go to your community, what your community need may be water or maybe security. So you cannot sit in your office in Abuja or in any government office and then decide to do whatever you want to do for the people. You need to go back to the people and discuss with them. How do we go about it? There are little resources. You know, what is the catchment area of development that we need? These are very simple things. There's nothing so different between other climes and Nigeria. But here, we are almost practically prevented from participating in governance. Participation is not
the citizens?
Yes, the citizens. I mean, if you want to ask questions, that is when you are going to be bombarded by all sorts of things. Now, participation in other climes is possibly working to the governor's office or the local government chairman and have an engagement. And it's very easy to see these persons. Without pride, I see some more heads of government. And sometimes I'm like, is this the president of Colombia I'm sitting with? And it's very difficult to even see my own president. Or even a governor, depends on how close you are. It shouldn't be that case. When you have this engagement, constant engagement with people, I can tell you, okay, look at the insecurity we are having. It's a direct failure of lack of engagement with the people. We have with the greatest respect, we have a complete failure of the local government system. I have consulted for outgone at the national level. And one of the key areas to development is the local government system. Because most times, you should have the local government chairman of this area that you can work to. If the local government system is effective, you don't even need to see the governor or the president. So if we get the local government system right, where there's engagement with the people and policies are drawn and articulated, That's great.
It's going to be difficult to
but
get
then-
it right
but then
because
somebody will not say, "Oh, we do."
governors are wanting the monies, the allocations of the local government for their personal interest, and then they go and pick these people, and not even the consensus agreement, of the indigenes of that particular local government area. They are handpicked.
Let me tell you the intriguing aspect. There's been this constitutional amendment that was ongoing, and then there was proposal for the autonomy for local governments. I tell you, most states voted against it.
Yes.
It's just like
most state governors.
Yes, of course.
Not most states. It looks as if
because
the
truth
people,
about it is that
it's the governors.
I agree with you. That is the truth. Let's not sugarcoat anything, because the House of Assembly of States, with the greatest respect, most states are controlled by what the governor dictates.
Exactly.
Now, somebody said, I want to give you freedom to explore. You are now an adult. And you say, no, please don't give me freedom. Give me whatever you want to give me. That's what basically happened. And that's why I say I find it very intriguing and amusing that in Nigeria, with so much capacity, we have one of the best brains in the country, in the world, when it comes to journalism. Brilliant journalists like you, brilliant lawyers, brilliant doctors. I mean, my work is more appreciated when I'm outside this country. That's the truth about it.
And that continues to fill
yes,
the
it's
Japa
been very
syndrome
tempting
also.
coming back to this country always. But this is my country. I cannot run away from it. This is my country.
We have a very few people like you.
Yes, we need to be in this country to develop this country. That is the truth about it. I feel like it's a class citizen anytime I'm in the UK, for instance. Even as privileged as I am to be a member of the Chatham House, and of course, I've had engagement with the Nigerian High Commission. I still feel like it's a class citizen. It's only in your country that you feel that warm. You can explore, you can talk. Culturally, you are okay.
You know where the laws of your land defend you to the extent.
But when the environment is so toxic that good people are always pushed away. But if we want to get it right, what I would like to know, the thing, permit me to use this word. All of us, we don't chop breakfast, because
Nigeria has sent us breakfast.
For international audience, I hope you understand. The breakfast means that all of us are now in the position that, look, what we're running away from is not here. The insecurity. It's difficult. I can't remember the last time I went by road. Just lately that I had to come to Uyo from Port Harcourt. It wasn't very funny. It's not everybody that have that privilege. I must tell us. So now, even if we don't take it, if we're not careful, even the so-called air traffic will be a security risk. Why? Because when there's failure of governance, when there's failure of engagement, especially these elections, the legitimacy of this election has been questioned seriously.
Yeah.
And that's why, with all greatest respect, with the respect to my constituency, the judiciary has to be up and doing.
Okay, so let's, in the few minutes that we have, we want to look at if there's any possible lessons we've learnt in all of this, because we've talked about educating the electorate and the masses as the cycle of elections will come again. Like you rightly said, one problem is the fact that elections are finished. Nigerians are going to go back to business as usual until we come again, people start campaigning in our faces and we start asking questions that are too late. What are the lessons that you think we should have, drawn out of this just concluded election cycle?
Well, it's very clear. I think even with my activity as a law reform commission, I don't think our problems are laws in this country. I'm forced to keep repeating.
Not laws and not policies.
No. We have good policies. We have good laws. Do we have the will to implement it? Do we have persons? Now, if you want to appoint somebody commissioner for works, the person, for instance, should know the environment very well, apart from other qualifications. Now, if you appoint a person commissioner for works and he does not know this terrain, I want to use this terrain as an example. He doesn't know this, he's not going to perform. He's going to be in Uyo capital city until every part of Uyo is developed. It was when I was coming, I said, okay, I need to talk to my friend, the governor, to have a way that, okay, but that's why I said people have to do those presentations. For instance, so that basically when you're forming government, you are not going to look at people that actually supported you throughout to be elected. You look at technocrats. That's why governance is different from politics. Look, if you now want to say, okay, this person is the person that made you to win a particular polling unit, and he doesn't have the capacity and qualification, for instance, to man a particular office. For instance, how do you bring in somebody to be chairman of Civil Service Commission when basically he knows nothing about it? Or you bring somebody to be different ministries that you cannot place. Okay, you look at what happened in 1999 during the Obasanjo's administration. I must give him the kudos. He brought in technocrats. That's why you see Okonjo-Iweala, my friend who was the Minister of Agriculture is now ADB President. Yeah, so you have them. You have those kind of persons that will give your government credibility. I can tell some of my friends. I say, if you want to succeed, I'll work with you. But if you want praise singers, I may not be able to contribute anything. Because if you want to succeed, you must tell ourselves the home truth. You must bring people that will deliver and have a legacy. Of course, what we have mostly in this country, either at the state level or the presidential level, you want people that will praise sing you, will always tell you are right. Even when they see snake, they say, no, that is not snake, that is rope, you walk through it. And some of us are not cut out for that, trust me. Maybe because we are exposed, we are traveling and all that. No, if you want something, and that is why I say, where we have gotten to that, we can no longer travel on our road. It's because of failure of governance. That is the truth about it. That, okay, it was happening in Meduguri, we all kept quiet. It started coming down. And now, up to even my village, you cannot stay with your eyes closed.
Yeah, very serious issues there, but of course time is of essence, and our time is far gone. Just like Citizen Matthew O'Connor.
The time is already gone?
Yes, time is
gone.
When Citizen Matthew O'Connor said, when we were talking about what happened in Port Harcourt, where, traditionalists came out, to block the road and do some kinds of enchantment. And Citizen Matthew O'Connor actually said that, look, for those people, they have done something for their party. So if their party wins, definitely the governor or whoever it is they were trying to fight for is obliged to give them some kind of,
stake
position,
in the government.
of course, stake in the government. So it brings me to what you just said as a conclusion, that when you have round pegs in round holes, it makes governance smooth. But when we have a situation where even the process was rigged, it was marred by a lot of irregularities, when you go into power, you're trying to also give back to the people that worked for you. So you have triangle pegs, not just even square pegs. You have triangle pegs trying to fit into round holes. And it's quite a very serious issue in governance in Nigeria. But this is where we can actually go for the conversations this morning. It's been a great time on set today. I want to say a very big thank you to all those that called in. Tony Eze from Benue, and of course Sonny from Benin City. Thank you so much. We'll definitely be back here again tomorrow with another blockbuster show on Rise and Shine. My name is Janice Cobham. Thank you so much. And once again, thank you to Sir Leonard Anyogo for being on set with us this morning. It's been a great pleasure.
It's my pleasure.
Great delight, great conversation this morning. Big thank you to our production team for putting on a really great breakfast show this Monday morning. 4 days to go. Great conversations, a great Nigeria. Like we'd always say, God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. My name is Uyai Anyek, and we leave you now to Sports Central, Clyden Ukem and Isaac. Enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of our programming.